Hey everybody, welcome into Tuesday's edition of To The Point Podcast. Hope you guys are all doing well. Another beautiful day here in New Brunswick as we inch closer to the start of the 2022-2023 NFL season. And there was baseball yesterday. Great college football game last night. We had the two Labor Day Classics in the CFL. But it's NFL week, as you guys all know. It's NFL season. It's where we are in the sports calendar. And the chat today is going to be about the top 32 quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm really excited for the next couple days. We're going to talk about these quarterbacks. I've done a lot of deep dive into this for my ranking system, how I went about it last night and the last week. I've been working on teams that are going to make the playoffs, and my God, it's hard going through each game, picking if they're going to win certain games, who's going to make the playoffs, who's going to win divisions. Much tougher than you might think. So, in particular, with the 7 teams in each conference making the playoffs, makes it that much more difficult. And I'm going to unveil that over the next couple days. I'll unveil that tomorrow. We'll talk about the MVP of the league tomorrow. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year. Those type of accolades, I'll predict those tomorrow. And that will lead us into Thursday, where it will be the start of the NFL season. We'll talk about the game. Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills visiting the Los Angeles Rams. This morning, the line on FanDuel was Bills minus 3.5. I can't believe that. I can't believe that they're that big of a road favorite against the reigning defending Super Bowl champions. We'll talk about the line on Thursday, whether you should be betting that. Maybe bet the underdog, but we'll talk about that on Thursday and a whole bunch of other things. But it's NFL week. Writers coming back on the show on Friday. We're going to talk about over-unders in the NFL. We're going to talk about this weekend's lines in the NFL with every game. We'll also dive into college football week 1, and we'll talk about some gambling on that in that front as well when it comes to big money. As you all know, Fridays, Big Money Fridays. We'll talk about that as well. Now, before we get to football, and today's going to be a football day, there's some news. Bo Bichette hit 3 home runs yesterday. Good to see. He's been quiet for a long time. The Blue Jays beat the Orioles in their first 2 games of that series. They have a 4.5 game lead. They win the game tonight. The wild card race is over. Baltimore can pack up their lunch pail and go home. It's done. Aaron Judge hits his 54th bomb. The Yankees win. He's hitting dingers. He's trying to get to 62. For him, his contract status, it would be massive if he could. Be massive if he could sit out, not take the deal that was offered, hit this many home runs, and then still be able to get a payout like that. Good for Aaron Judge. The Yankees aren't going to win the World Series, so we might as well get some personal accolades because he won't get many in the playoffs. Sorry, Yankee fans, but you're not winning the pennant this year. Just like I said, the Dodgers aren't winning the pennant. The 2 favorites will not be in the World Series playing each other like everybody predicts at the start of each baseball season, because why not? When's the last time they played against each other? I don't know. They might have had Sandy Koufax on the mound with Satchel Paige. That was baseball yesterday. Mariners lost to the White Sox. White Sox are starting to win some games, starting to creep back up, although the Guardians beat the sorry Royals last night, so they're still 2 back in that division, although they're tied with the Twins now for second in the AL Central. Dallas Cowboys signed Jason Peters, 40-year-old longtime left tackle, potential future Hall of Famer, Super Bowl champion, is now on their practice squad with the injury to Tyron Smith. He provides some depth. He's from the Dallas area, so he doesn't have to go far. And this is just insurance. He played for the Bears last year. He was healthy scratched in multiple games. I'm not sure how big. I don't think this is a massive signing. He's a name. You know him on an offensive line where he was so good in Philadelphia for the longest time. For me, this is just the Cowboys putting on a practice squad that has some validity, that has a name that people recognize, and that they can sell a little bit because they've been so inept. The fan base has been beyond reproach when it comes to their free agent and how they approach free agency, with all the players that they didn't go out and get, with the receivers that they haven't signed, with veterans on the market. So this can calm people down in Dallas, Fort Worth a little bit, although they'll be pissed off after they lose their first game this coming Sunday. Pittsburgh Steelers named Mitch Trubisky, who might be on my quarterback list. He is on my quarterback list. The starting quarterback, we all thought this, Kenny Pickett, was in the mix, but Kenny Pickett is listed as quarterback 3. I believe Kenny Pickett will likely be inactive this coming Sunday against the Cincinnati Bengals. Teams normally do this with rookie quarterbacks. I think if there was an injury to Mitch Trubisky, then Kenny Pickett would start, but they like to dress a veteran as the backup so that the rookie doesn't have to get thrown in to action mid-game. So I think for now, Trubisky's the starting quarterback. If things don't go well, Kenny Pickett will get the ball, not Mason Rudolph. We know what he can do, not much. U.S. Open. Jessica Pegula moves on. Iga Swiatek wins in 3 sets. An ugly win, but a win nonetheless. These two women will play each other tomorrow in a quarterfinal. I expect that one to be on center court, and I expect that match to be in primetime. Although, and the reason I say this is because Danielle Collins, the American who had played every match on primetime prior to last night, she loses to Arina Sabalenka. She moves on. She will play Karolina Pliskova in the other quarterfinal. So Pegula is an American, of course. 2 American women left in the draw with Pegula and Coco Gauff, who will be in action tonight, first on Ash in primetime at the U.S. Open, facing off against Caroline Garcia, who has been one of the, as I mentioned, all tournament, one of the hottest players in the summer. She's 30-4 in her last 34 matches. She's defeated Bianca Andreescu in this tournament, and she's looked fantastic. Coco Gauff won in straight sets as well. Should be an intriguing matchup tonight. The other match tonight will be Nick Kyrgios, who will go up against Karen Khachanov of Russia. Kyrgios lost in doubles yesterday with Kokanis, his doubles partner. The series is tied 1-1 with these two players. If Kyrgios was to lose this match, this would be a real big deflator for the event, if you ask me. Because the other quarterfinal today has been finished. Casper Ruud defeated Matteo Berrettini in straight sets. He's into his second semifinal, major semifinal of the season. He also has a chance to become the world number 1 alongside Carlos Alcaraz, who got through Marin Cilic last night in a 5-set thriller that went into the wee hours in the morning. So he's through. He'll play Yannick Sinner, who also played a 5-set match on Louis Armstrong around the same time. So 2 young, great tennis players will square off tomorrow at the U.S. Open. But Casper Ruud is through. He's waiting for his opponent. I predict it'll be Nick Kyrgios tonight. If I'm gambling, I'm betting on Kyrgios. He's just playing so great. His serve is rocking. And Khachanov is a really inconsistent tennis player. And I think he'll shrink in the biggest moments. Well, Kyrgios is going to get the crowd support. They love him. People on social media hate him. But the people in New York like him. They like his attitude. Also, Khachanov's a Russian. He's not going to get much crowd support at this event. Just the way it's going right now. Yesterday, the biggest event of the day was Frances Tiafoe, the American, upsetting Rafael Nadal. Nadal loses his first match at a major this season. Tiafoe was dialed in, drop shots. He was confident. His ground strokes. And Nadal just wasn't all there. You could tell it wasn't his best match. He didn't play with a whole lot of confidence, and Tiafoe took advantage. Nothing against Tiafoe. I thought he played fantastic. Nadal didn't look right, I will say that. But Tiafoe is the first American man to beat one of the big 3 at a major in 2014. Something like, it's been a long time since an American has beat one of the big 3 at a major. Tiafoe now is into the quarterfinal. I think he's got a decent chance. He'll play Andrei Rublev of Russia, who won in straight sets in a pretty easy win over Cameron Norrie yesterday. Was not expecting that. But Tiafoe looks good. I think he should be confident. Rublev should be confident. The thing for Tiafoe is to keep his emotions in check, because Rublev is a hothead. He can lose it quickly, and before you know it, Tiafoe could be in a good position to win this match. But good on Tiafoe. It's tough to beat Nadal. He had not lost a match at a major this season. That has now changed. And looking ahead here, Casper Ruud is through. I expect Kyrgios. We'll see. We have a first women's quarterfinal with Ons Jabeur and Aya Tomljanovic, who's hoping to continue her magical run this afternoon. We'll have the women's semifinals on Thursday, men's semifinals Friday, women's final Saturday afternoon, and then the men's final Sunday afternoon. I will say before we move on to football, we'll get into more topics tomorrow, but I want to get to this quarterback list, and that's going to be just the bulk of the podcast today. If I was the tournament, if I was the U.S. Open, I would start a day earlier at the front end. I would do something I'd play people back-to-back days because the men's final falling on a Sunday afternoon at 5 p.m. is a terrible time. It's going to get terrible ratings. It'll be on ESPN, but nobody's going to be watching that match. And the reason for that is the NFL starts on Sunday. Nobody is going to I don't think the women's final will do great ratings on Saturday with college football. Alabama and Texas play at 1. Okay, you'll say, well, it's done at 4:30. Well, there's another game at 4:30 that's compelling. NFL all day Sunday. Men's U.S. Open final will not do great ratings because the NFL is king. I'm going to try to get it in, but I only have so many screens. I'm loving the tournament. I need to see it, but I might have to tape it and watch it later. The U.S. Open has a problem with this. They need to do something to avoid it because people aren't going to watch the U.S. Open when there's NFL on TV. Do something so you don't come face-to-face with the demon that is the NFL. There are ratings. They kill your ratings. I don't care what you're doing. The NFL will crush you, and they'll crush the U.S. Open men's final in this case as well. Now, let's pivot to my quarterback list. So, this list is ranking the top 32 quarterbacks going into this upcoming season. I looked at stats from last year. I'm looking at my own rating when it comes to quarterbacks. Just how I like to see them play, what they provide, and what I expect to see from them this year. So, let's get it started. Number 32 on my list is Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett is the now starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. Jacoby Brissett has a losing record for his career. He's had one winning season, and that was with the Indianapolis Colts the year Andrew Luck retired. He's played in Miami. He's played in Indianapolis. He's played in New England. Not a bad quarterback. 2 more touchdowns and interceptions. Completes about 66% of his passes, which is good, but he's not a guy that airs the ball down the field. He became virtually unplayable last year in Miami when Tua Tagovailoa was hurt. The Cleveland Browns, on paper, expect Brissett to be able to hold the fort down while he who must not be named is suspended. I don't think Brissett will be able to. I see their win projection. I'm going under. Brissett is a solid backup, but solid backups are guys you don't want to see play. Jacoby Brissett is Teddy Bridgewater. He's Chase Daniel. These backup quarterbacks that you don't want to see enter a game, but you're happy he's on your roster because he's better than player X. He's better than Easton Stick. He's better than Brock Purdy. But that's not saying much. He's on my list because I'll be clear, I did not put the man who will replace Jacoby Brissett on this list. Yes, that man will return in Week 11 to the Cleveland Clowns, but he's not worth me writing down. He's not worth me looking up his stats. Not to mention, he didn't play last year. Sean Watson didn't play. God damn it. He didn't play a game last year. Caught myself. Didn't play a game. So I'm not going to put him on this list because I don't know how he's going to play. Brissett played 4 games last year. He went 1-3 with the Dolphins. That's what I know. 3 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Not good. Not good. But there's some bad backup quarterbacks, and Brissett is a decent guy, and he's a good guy to have around. Great quarterback? No, not close to being a great quarterback. But he's what's Cleveland. That's what Cleveland has. They chose not to keep Baker. They got what they got, and I have Brissett at number 32. Quarterback number 31 is Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota did not start a game last year, did not start a game the last 2 seasons for the Las Vegas Raiders. However, he started 4 seasons for the Tennessee Titans when he was drafted 2nd overall at the University of Oregon. He's a mobile quarterback. We've seen this. I watched Atlanta's 3 preseason games. He looks pretty good. To me, Mariota was always a guy that could move extremely well, was a great college quarterback because you look at dual threats and how successful they are in college. But he's always more of a runner than he was a thrower. When the run game was good with guys with Derrick Henry, with DeMarco Murray in Tennessee, he had success. When the run game was blocked up and you forced him to drop back, 3-step drops from Marcus Mariota, that's not his friend. That's not his wheelhouse. That's not where he shines. So Mariota is a career 64% completion percentage. He's thrown more interceptions than touchdowns. He will make a mistake when he gets down the field, when he might go on a great drive. You see him run bootlegs the whole time. He gets down to the end zone, he'll throw a bad pick. I think he's a below average starter to an elite level backup quarterback. There's a reason that Marcus Mariota sat on a bench for 2 seasons. It's because he didn't have space for him. Nobody viewed him that way. Not to mention, in Vegas, he ran plays where he only was to run the ball. They had specific plays where he was just running the football. He's getting an opportunity at Atlanta because they're moving on from Matt Ryan, and they need a guy to step in. I like Mariota. There's a player that is similar to Mariota that is on my list that is a little bit higher. He's also a starting quarterback this year. Atlanta has some decent skill position players. They have Kyle Pitts. Drake London remains to be seen. Cordero Patterson, who's a Swiss Army knife, running back, wide receiver, special teams. Whatever you need him to do, he can do it. Offensive line, The future is unclear in Atlanta. Marcus Mariota is 31. That does not mean he's going to play the entire season. Yes, you might be one of the top 32 quarterbacks in the NFL right now. I did not include Desmond Ridder on this list because he has not played a snap in the NFL. Desmond Ridder very well might be the starting quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons come the end of the year. Actually, I guarantee he will be, even though Mariota has a 2-year contract with the Falcons. If Atlanta is going to get a high draft pick, they're going to want to see Desmond Ridder to see if he is worth keeping around or if they need to draft another guy to replace him. Mariota is a stopgap. There's a lot of quarterbacks like this, but he's a good one. He's low maintenance, good guy, good teammate. He was a great backup quarterback to Derek Carr for 2 years. If he's replaced, he will not throw a fuss. But I also expect him to be incredibly competitive because I don't think Mariota is going to want to lose another starting quarterback job. He lost it in Tennessee. He never got a second look. He didn't get the Ryan Tannehill benefit where he went to Tennessee and got a second look. He got a chance to be the starting quarterback. Mariota never did until now, when there's a quarterback shortage and Atlanta was desperate. They didn't get Hugh must not be named, and Matt Ryan said enough. You're not going to value me, I'm leaving. They had to get Mariota. Below level starter, elite level backup. We'll see how it plays this year. That's number 31, Marcus Mariota. Number 30, Daniel Jones of the New York Giants. This is put up or shut up year for Daniel Jones. And I expect Daniel Jones to shut up because so far in his career, 3 seasons, nobody has fumbled the ball more than Daniel Jones. He's fumbled the ball 22 times. The other team has recovered it 20 times. Last season, injured, missed some games. But in his limited action, he threw 2,428 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. That is not a good ratio. Daniel Jones is a turnover machine with a crap team around him. However, to start his career, Daniel Jones had Odell Beckham Jr. III on his roster. He had talent. He had Sterling Shepard. He had some pretty good receivers. Now we look around, Kenny Golladay, or at least the ghost of Kenny Golladay, and that big check the Giants are paying him to not even be able to catch a 50-50 ball is hanging around. Kadarius Toney, who they never learned how to use right, is still sitting there. Injured Saquon Barkley. How can Barkley, will he return to form? Can he play decent football? Maybe that helped the Giants. Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen did not come in to inherit Daniel Jones. They had to. They have him for another year. They have one of the worst salary cap structures in the NFL. I blame ownership a ton for that because they have one of the worst owners in the league in the Marrod family. Daniel Jones is another stopgap. He will be the Marcus Mariota next year. Daniel Jones will not be a New York Giant come this season, this time next year. New York Giants will select a quarterback in the draft. C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, Will Levis, you name it. Won't be DJ Uiagalelei for the University of Clemson, because that offense stinks. Watching that last night. But it will be he will be somewhere. He will be taking snaps, but it won't be starter snaps. Daniel Jones, enjoy your time as a starting quarterback, because it's not going to continue for much longer. When you're a bad team, in order to stay in games, you need to almost make every play the correct one. That means not turning over the football. Turnover free, smart decision making. Daniel Jones fails in both of those categories. Number 30, Daniel Jones. Number 29, I have Davis Mills of the Houston Texans. Davis Mills was in a crap situation last year. Real crap one. A bad team, other than Brandon Cooks, no real weapons, and he had he who must not be named surrounding him. It's funny how many times that player has just hurt people along the way. But Davis Mills was a third-round pick out of Stanford. No expectations. Came in and played. He finished last year at 2,600 yards and 26-64 passing, 18 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and completed 66.3% of his passes. Not great, not bad, but I think Davis Mills is pretty good. He's got a deep ball, he's got a big arm, he can throw the ball down the field. And this year's an audition for Davis Mills to be a starting quarterback. He's on one of the worst rosters in the NFL. They do still have Brandon Cooks. They do have Damian Pierce out of the University of Florida, who'll be the rookie tailback for the Houston Texans. I like Davis Mills. I'm just not sure the roster is going to be good enough for him to succeed. Lovie Smith's the new coach. Lovie Smith is 2 games over 500 in his career. He has been a successful head coach in Chicago for a long period of time that people forget about. But Davis Mills has the skills to be a good quarterback in the NFL, to stick around long term. I think Davis Mills might have a good season for the Texans, and they could still look to move on and look at the draft because they'll want a top pick. I have Davis Mills at 29. He's a guy for me that can move up on this list. There are guys that I think will move down. I think Davis Mills will be higher than 29 if I do this list again next year. He may not be the quarterback for the Houston Texans, but maybe he's a Baker Mayfield where he ends up somewhere else, and he has an opportunity to be a starter there. That's kind of my prediction for Davis Mills. I think teams already look at him and see a guy that can be a starting quarterback, Put a decent team around him. He can be successful. Is he going to ever be a top 10 quarterback in this league? I don't think so. But can he be top 15? Yeah, because it was tough putting this list together. And when I got to 15, those quarterbacks aren't that good either. Davis Mills has some upside. I think Davis Mills will be in the NFL for a long time. 18 touchdowns last year, didn't play a full season. I think Davis Mills will have 25 touchdowns plus this year for the Houston Texans. I think Brandon Cooks will catch at least 8 of them. I don't play fantasy, but there's a little prediction for you. They got nobody else to throw to. Brandon Cooks can play. He's so consistent. He's got 1,000 yards 7 of the last 8 years. He'll have another good year with the Texans. Davis Mills, 29, re-ranked higher after this year. Number 28, I have Zach Wilson of the New York Jets. Zach Wilson, it was so hard to, his numbers are so minuscule. 6 touchdown passes, but he got injured. More interceptions. He ran the football, but he missed games last year. Joe Flacco had to come in and play. Mike White. And then Zach Wilson gets hurt in the preseason, although it's reported today he may start week 1 because he worked out yesterday. They're still waiting to hear if Zach Wilson will be QB1 for their game against the Baltimore Ravens. Of all the rookies last year, I thought Zach Wilson was by far the worst. I do have Davis Mills below Zach Wilson, but Davis Mills went in the 3rd round. Zach Wilson went 2nd overall. So just marinate that for a second. I think I should have put Davis Mills above him now that I think about it. Zach Wilson is athletic. Zach Wilson does have a good arm. And Zach Wilson is on the Jets, and normally that is career suicide. However, Zach Wilson has weapons, and he has no excuse to fail. The Jets went out there and got C.J. Uzomah. The Jets drafted Garrett Wilson. The Jets have Corey Davis on their roster. They have Mims. The Jets have good personnel when it comes to receiving the football. They drafted Breece Hall out of Iowa State, a rookie tailback that I expect to be productive. They drafted Michael Carter last year out of the University of North Carolina. Their skill group is good. The Jets make quick decisions. I look at this Jets front office. Joe Douglas. Robert Saleh's in year 2. If they have a bad year, Robert Saleh's fired, period. Not going to keep a defensive-minded head coach and see nothing that's happening to help Zach Wilson. The Jets should win 5 to 6 games this year. They got sauce. They got a decent offense. It's up to Zach Wilson. AFC East is not that tough. Really isn't. I'm going through it. They might only have one playoff team. Still deciding. I haven't decided yesterday. We'll talk about that in the podcast more. I'm not so sure they'll have more than one playoff team. Patriots aren't that great. Dolphins have their flaws. Sure, the Bills, yeah, they're a favorite to win the Super Bowl. Okay, that's one team. Zach Wilson needs to show progress this year. Cut down on the mistakes. Work on his footwork. Dan Orlovsky talked about this in great detail on the mothership. He needs to figure that out, that part of his game out. He's got a ton of skill. He's got weapons. He should be higher in next year's list, but he could be a guy that is looking at a quarterback coming in that the Jets decide to draft, because that's what Jets do. Sam Darnold they liked until they didn't. Zach Wilson could be one bad year away from seeing that Grim Reaper as well. Zach Wilson, number 27. Number 26 is my off-the-board pick because this guy is not a starting quarterback. Number 26 is Gardner Minchu of the Philadelphia Eagles. Gardner Minchu has thrown 2-1 more touchdowns than interceptions in his career. Sure, he's lost 15 more games than he's won, although he was playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars following the Blake Bortles years in the middle of the Urban Meyer turmoil, and he had no help around him. A shit roster. and he was still playing good football. He's got a good arm, he's got a personality, and yet nobody seems to want Gardner Minshew. I like Jalen Hurts. He's on my quarterback list. We'll get to him. I don't think Gardner Minshew is a much different skill set than Jalen Hurts. He's not as good of a runner. Jalen Hurts is far more talented, far more athletic than Gardner Minshew. I think Gardner Minshew could win a number of games this year for the Philadelphia Eagles. They got a loaded roster. He's never played with good players. Gardner Minshew should be a starter in this league. He is better than Jacoby Brissett. He's better than Marcus Mariota. He's better than Danny Dimes. I'd have more confidence in the Giants winning games this year if Gardner Minshew was their quarterback. He should be a starter. He should not be going to his second straight season as a backup quarterback and be in a Chase Daniel territory. Gardner Minshew can play. The Eagles want to keep him. I understand that because it's great to have depth. Not to mention, Jalen Hurts gets hurt. No pun intended. You still have a chance to make the postseason. You still have a chance to win games, to win a division title. It's not Nate Sudfeld coming off the bench. It's Gardner Minshew who can straight rake the football. Gardner Minshew is a backup. Didn't play last year. I know he can play. I've seen his tape. I've seen him play games. I like Gardner Minshew. 26. Off the board, but he's damn good. Number 25, I have Jared Goff, Detroit Lions quarterback. I mean, Jared Goff's such an anomaly. 3 times he's appeared in Hard Knocks. Just a fun fact for you. Most ever. He's led a team to a Super Bowl. He's number 1 overall pick in the 2016 NFL Draft. Jared Goff's had an interesting career. From LA to Detroit in the Matthew Stafford trade, and then LA wins the Super Bowl. Jared Goff is a tentative quarterback. He's a guy that doesn't take a whole lot of big risks. Doesn't have the biggest arm in the world. I do think he's got good quality intangibles. I think he's a smart quarterback, all in all. I do think he's hindered by his inability to take big risks, by his arm's inability at times to really throw the ball deep down the field. But I have him at 25 because he's better than the guys below him. And not to mention, I expect the Detroit Lions to have a decent season this year. I believe the Detroit Lions will at least get to 7 wins. It would not shock me if they get 8. Jared Goff may not be the quarterback of the future. He's not going to be a guy that wins a Super Bowl in the NFL, in my opinion. But I do think Jared Goff, alongside a talented roster in Detroit and Dan Campbell biting kneecaps off, I think this team can be competitive this year. He will be a part of it. He's got great rapport with TJ Hawkinson. They got Jamison Williams. They got skill position players galore. They got great running DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams with the running backs. Jared Goff's been to a Super Bowl. I give credence to that. I really do. Number 24. I have Justin Fields of the Chicago Bears. Justin Fields last year did not have a great year. Threw for 1,870 yards, played 9 games, 7 touchdowns, alongside with 2 rushing touchdowns, 10 interceptions, only completed 59.6% of his passes. Wasn't impressive, although Justin Fields was running for his life the entire year. And he may drop in this list because the Chicago Bears are horrid. They stink. That offensive line is abysmal. They are doing nothing to help Justin Fields succeed in Chicago. They are throwing him into the swamp this year with Darnell Mooney and nothing else. Darnell Mooney will likely have 1,000 yards receiving, have a big year, But Allen Robinson is gone. They're going to ask Cole Kmet to be a great receiving tight end. I haven't seen it yet in his NFL career. Not to mention, I think Justin Fields will be one of the highest ranked sack quarterbacks in the NFL. They got San Francisco week 1. Armstead and Bosa will be feasting on that Bears offensive line. I like Fields a lot. He's athletic. He can throw a deep ball if you need him to. Had success at Ohio State, but this club could kill this player before he even gets his feet wet in the NFL. I don't know. I worry about him and his long-term future because I expect the Bears to have the worst record in the NFL. If you get the first pick in the draft, you're going to be looking at quarterbacks. You are going to look at your options moving forward. Justin Fields will likely be a Chicago Bear this time next year, but will he be in a quarterback competition? Would not surprise me at all. The old regime drafted Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy drafted Justin Fields. Viewed him as the quarterback of the future. Well, they didn't help him last year either. They're now both fired. This new core has no relation to Justin Fields. They have no reason to keep him. They may want to draft their own quarterback and see what they can do to have their own success. It's not going to be a good year, and I think the team will look to move on if they can at the quarterback position. I feel for Justin because I think he is a good quarterback, but he's not even being given a chance to succeed in his NFL career because the Chicago Bears are just an inept organization. Poor guy. Number 23. I have this guy at 23, and honestly, he's better than a few of these guys below him. I'm looking right now. I'm going to keep him at 23. I think he's better than the guy I have next, so that's contradicting myself, but I have porn star Jimmy Garoppolo at 23. Jimmy Garoppolo, as you all know, is now the backup quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo led the San Francisco 49ers to the NFC Championship game last year. The thing about Jimmy, everybody says, is that all he does is win. And I think part of that is because he's always had really good teams around him. He had good teams in New England. He's always had good teams in San Francisco. He's a guy that's limited physically, doesn't have the biggest arm in the world, but he does find ways to win games. He does help his team win, and he's got a great win percentage. And he's won 15 more games than he's lost in his NFL career. Many quarterbacks would take that stat. Been to a Super Bowl, been to an NFC Championship game. Bill Belichick wanted him to be the successor to Tom Brady. Completes over 63% of his passes. To me, he should be a starting quarterback in the NFL. He's not because he doesn't want to go to, I look at these teams below me. Do you want to go to the Jets? Probably not. Maybe. I might pick the Jets. Do you want to go to Houston? Probably not. Do you want to go to the Giants? No. Do you want to go to Cleveland? That's a mess. And they're not going to take him with Hugh must not be named returning in week 11. So, to me, Jimmy Garoppolo is an upgrade over a number of starters in the NFL right now because he can win games. He can find a way to edge it out for you. And he's just a smart quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo may be a backup right now, but he could be a starting quarterback in this league all day, every day. I have him at 23. Number 22, I have the polarizing Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz had a sneaky good season last year. He had 3,563 yards passing. That's average. He's not really airing the ball down the field a ton, but he did throw 27 touchdowns and only had 7 interceptions and completed 62.4% of his passes, which was his best completion percentage since his second year in the NFL, where he would have won the MVP if he didn't tear his ACL. To me, Carson Wentz is a guy that will play well in the moments where you don't expect him to, and then the big moments where you need him, he folds. The game against Jacksonville was just an unforgivable game by the entire team, but in particular Carson Wentz. He had 7 interceptions last year. 2 of them came in the season finale against the Jacksonville Jaguars, including a pick 6. The Jaguars, who had 2 wins last year, and Carson Wentz lost in that finale. Chris Ballard looked around and said, I can't bring this guy back to the Colts because we can't trust him, and he's gonna fall flat in his face. Not to mention, we've heard forever that he's not a good leader, and there always just seems to be a problem with Carson Wentz. Dak Prescott went in the same draft class. I think Carson Wentz is better. I think Dak Prescott is better. Jared Goff went in his draft class. Obviously, I have Wentz slightly ahead of Jared Goff by a few picks. He is a good quarterback. He's got Terry McLaurin in Washington now playing for the Commanders. Antonio Gibson's a good running back. He's going to lose Brian Robinson because he was shot in that carjacking last week. I don't think the Commanders are going to be a very good team. They never are. They got one of the worst owners in pro sports, maybe the worst in Daniel Snyder. Commanders aren't making the postseason. I think this would be Carson Wentz's last year as a starter. You see guys that come in. Davis Mills will replace guys like Carson Wentz because you've seen Carson Wentz play forever and you know what he's going to do. Davis Mills will replace guys like that. Potentially, to me, I'd rather start Gardner Minchu over Carson Wentz week 1. I just would, because I think Gardner Minshew is as good or better. Justin Fields will replace a guy like Carson Wentz. This new group of quarterbacks are coming in. These guys that have been around a long time, that have just mulled around at being 500, mulled around at competing for a division. You got to get it done. It was a massive blunder by Carson Wentz last year in that season finale, because if they make the playoffs, I think he's still in Indianapolis and Matt Ryan is elsewhere. He might still be in Atlanta. Maybe he decides to go somewhere else, but the Indy job I don't think would become available. He would have at least got to the postseason and played in a wild card game. Who knows what would have happened? All I do know is you screwed up in the biggest moment. Now you go to Washington, where on paper, yes, the NFC East is an easier division. The NFC is a weaker conference, but your team is much weaker. I think Frank Reich is a better coach than Ron Rivera at this point of his career. I love Terry McLaurin, but the rest of your weapons are limited. You don't have a Jonathan Taylor at running back that really helped you have a great season last year. This is it for Carson Wentz, and I don't expect it to be a great send-off for him as a starting quarterback. 21 and 20, I have 2 guys from the same rookie class. They were last year. I think these 2 will flip this year, but I'm going to go 21. I have Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence last year had 3,153 yards passing, 12 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, and only completed 59.6% of his passes. Dreadful year. Absolutely terrible. But let's remember, Peyton Manning led the league in interceptions in his rookie year. Matthew Stafford led the league in interceptions last year. He won a Super Bowl. So Trevor Lawrence was with Urban Meyer. It was a chaotic time last year for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Doug Peterson coming in provides stability, provides a quarterback room that is safe. That's somewhere that I think Trevor Lawrence can express his feelings, can play good football. They've also added multiple weapons around him, like a Christian Kirk, like a James Robinson. Travis Etienne, his buddy from Clemson, is back after being out all of last year with the Liz Frank injury to his foot. The Jaguars are a sneaky team to make the playoffs. Yes, they could be a team that had the first pick in the draft back-to-back years that actually get to the postseason. To me, they will finish between 7 and 9 wins. Trevor Lawrence is going to show massive growth this year. He went first overall for a reason, because he is special. I want to see that dog in him. I want to see him compete on the football field with a good team around him. But I believe the Jacksonville Jaguars can make the postseason. The AFC is loaded. The thing that you have to look at is schedule. That's sometimes you think, well, the Jaguars, they're not that good of a team. Okay. Dolphins on paper are absolutely better than the Jacksonville Jaguars. But when you're doing your homework, like I have the past couple nights, you look at the Dolphins schedule and you realize it's pretty damn tough. Jacksonville gets the AFC South 6 games a year. Houston, a very good team. Tennessee got a lot worse. Go look at their roster or listen to my divisional previews, even better option. Go listen to what Tennessee's got to bring to the table, not to mention they just lost Harold Landry to a torn ACL. Sometimes it's not about the best team, it's about being in the best circumstance. Baltimore missed the playoffs last year. Well, guess what? Now they have one of the easiest schedules in the NFL because of that. You benefit from being bad the following year. You were hurt the following year by being extremely productive. The Rams have a tough schedule because they won the Super Bowl. You're in an easy division. You can win 5-6 games. You're already above the 8 ball from there. Colts, Titans are not sweeping the AFC South this year because Jacksonville is going to have a say in it. Trevor Lawrence is going to have a big year. He will be in the top 20 next year, and I think he'll even be higher than that. Number 20, I have Mack Jones of the New England Patriots. Trevor Lawrence will be higher than Mack Jones after this upcoming season because Mack Jones, who had a solid year last year, 3,801 yards passing, 22 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, completed 67.6% of his passes. That's incredibly impressive. A great rookie year, but let's be clear, Mack Jones should have had a better rookie year than Trevor Lawrence. Mack Jones went 15th. Trevor Lawrence went 1. That means Jacksonville stinks. New England's right in the middle of the pack. Mack Jones had better weapons than Trevor Lawrence. Indisputable. You could say, well, James Robinson was a better running back than what New England has to offer. I'll give you that. But New England had more depth with Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, Brandon Bolden. Need I say more? New England's defense was a hell of a lot better than Jacksonville. Mack Jones doesn't have a great arm. Mack Jones, I think he's a smart quarterback. He's in better shape than he was last year. I give him credit for that. He's a system quarterback. He's a guy that you put good pieces around him. You have a good system. I think he can succeed and be an extremely productive quarterback. He's not going to change your life, Mack Jones. Trevor Lawrence has the skill, has the athletic ability to turn around a franchise and do more with just himself being that elite. Mack Jones isn't one of those guys. Mack Jones he'll be a starting quarterback forever. I'm not saying he's going to fall off a cliff here. But Trevor Lawrence is a better quarterback than Mack Jones. Sorry, Patriots fans. It's just true. Patriots, not to mention, we talked about weapons last year. Jacksonville's got better weapons this season than New England does. New England's skill group stinks. Just stinks. Tyquan Thornton broke his collarbone. They were banking on him, a rookie, to be productive. He's not available. Jacoby Myers, Julian Edelman's retired. Gronk's not coming back. It's extremely limited on what these guys can do. I don't think it's going to be a fun year in New England. Their roster stinks. They can't draft a wide receiver to save their life. Yes, Bill Belichick is the genius. Maybe they'll work it out. An interesting game, week 1. Patriots, Dolphins, I think it's a must-win for both teams. The Dolphins have an incredibly tough start to the season. They start home to the Patriots. They play the Bengals in there. I believe they play the Vikings in there. The Ravens they play in there. They got an extremely tough part of to start the season. They need to get week 1 win over New England. New England needs to win that game too because they have a tough schedule as well. Not to mention their roster is not very good. Mack Jones is a good quarterback. He just needs some help around him. Doesn't have a whole lot this year. I don't think the Patriots will return as a playoff team. Mack Jones, number 20. Good season. Number 19 is my old buddy, Baker Mayfield Jr III. Baker Mayfield last year did not have a great year. 3,000 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, completed just a shy over 60% of his passes. Tough year. Was injured. Was not healthy. From week 2 on, fractured collarbone. He gutted through the season. It hurt him because everybody seen him play bad, and his stock dropped. Cleveland was desperate after the season prior. He made it to the AFC divisional round, nearly beat the Chiefs with Baker Mayfield at the helm. But somehow people just forget that he was a good quarterback there. They forget that his rookie season, he had the most touchdown passes by a rookie in the history of the NFL until Jacoby Brissett broke his record. Sorry, until Justin Herbert broke his record, not Jacoby Brissett. Baker Mayfield can play. Is he a franchise changer? Is he worthy of being a number one overall pick? No. But was Jared Goff being worth a number one overall pick? Was Carson Wentz worth taking number 2? Was Daniel Jones worth taking number 6? We see quarterbacks taken high every damn year that aren't worth a damn. Zach Wilson going to be worth the 2nd pick overall in the draft? Is Tua Tagovailoa going to be worth taking 5th? Baker Mayfield is a good quarterback when healthy. I believe the Carolina Panthers, I said this last week, and I stick to it. I think they had a tough schedule. I'm going through the teams. It's going to be so hard to finish this tonight. I get teams put in place to make the postseason. I got the Panthers making the playoffs with Baker Mayfield at the helm. The health of Christian McCaffrey is paramount to this, which he's never healthy, so that doesn't help my argument. But I believe Baker Mayfield is better than people give him credit for, and I believe he's going to have a good season in Carolina with Robbie Anderson, with DJ Moore, with Tommy Tremble, with McCaffrey, Chuba Hubbard. Need I say more? Not to mention, Matt Rule needs to win games or he's going to be, you're fired, Donald Trump style. Baker is a good quarterback. People forget that. He could have been higher. He had a bad year last year, so I dropped him a bit. He'll get a long-term deal from somebody after this year, I predict. Maybe it'll be Carolina, maybe it won't, but I think he's going to have a great season with the Panthers. He's out of that clown show that is Cleveland. Get out of that state, you get some success. Fuck off, Cleveland. Number 18, I have Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts last year had 3,144 yards passing, 16 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Not gaudy numbers. He ran for 6 touchdowns as well. He ran for over 550 yards. Jalen Hurts is a dual threat quarterback. He can use his arm, he can use his legs. He runs an RPO system, and Jalen Hurts will never be a guy that wows you from the pocket. Jalen Hurts will never be a guy that you look at and say, this guy's going to throw for 5,000 yards. He's a perfect pocket passer. He'll never be just a stereotypical quarterback's dream. I like Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback, and I think he's better than people give him credit for. The Eagles roster is loaded. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, offensive line at the wazoo. You got Jason Kelsey at center. Still got Brandon Brooks. You got Haloi Vaitai. You're loaded. Just loaded, that offensive line, and a really, really good defense as well. Philadelphia Eagles are going to win the NFC East, not the Dallas Cowboys. I think Jalen Hurts has a season that people will remember. Jalen Hurts, number 18, needs to prove it. I think he will. Number 17, I have Ryan Tannehill of the Tennessee Titans. Push through a couple here. A few guys that are similar. Tannehill, 21 touchdowns, 14 interceptions last year. He had that stats. He completed 67% of his passes in a season where the Tennessee Titans were the number 1 seed in the AFC. I talked about divisions earlier with Jacksonville. You're in a shit division, it helps you. Not to mention the Tennessee Titans upset the Buffalo Bills last year on Monday Night Football. They defeated the Cincinnati Bengals in the regular season. Tennessee found ways to win big games. Tannehill is a good quarterback that needs a great team around him. He had Derrick Henry, for a couple of years, the best running back in the NFL. I view Tannehill as a system quarterback. You have a great run game. It turns into the bootleg game, into play action where he can find guys down the field wide open. I think A.J. Brown helped Ryan Tannehill look as good as he did. A.J. Brown is no longer in Tennessee. He's going to be playing with Jalen Hurts, helping him. Tannehill's weapons are not as great as they once were. He lost some tight ends. He lost A.J. Brown. Treylon Burks is in Tennessee, but that's a lot to ask of a rookie to be what A.J. Brown has been to this offense. Not to mention, I question Derrick Henry and how productive he'll be this year after injuries and just the wear and tear he's had on his body. Tannehill's a system quarterback. Tennessee, I think, is going to fall back. I don't expect them to win their division. I don't expect them to make the playoffs. Ryan Tannehill is a guy that I think even if Tennessee decides to move on from because they have Malik Willis sitting there who they drafted in the third round this past year's draft, he will be a guy teams will look for if they have a good team around him. This middle pack I just view as guys that are good quarterbacks that will be solid in the NFL for as long as they want to play, but will likely never win a Super Bowl. 16, I have Jameis Winston. Same thing. He was injured last year in week 7, tore his ACL. Prior to that, he had 1,170 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Solid. Tore his ACL. He's returning from an ACL injury, going back to the Saints roster, where I got to tell you, I like the Saints roster, and it's tough for me to look at. You have the Bucs sitting there, you have the Saints, and you have the Panthers. I think every team is pretty good. The Bucs are obviously the class because they have Tom Brady, and it's just assumed that they'll win the division. The Bucs will win that division. They'll move on, and they'll get a high seed in the NFC. I have question marks about the Saints. Michael Thomas hasn't played in 2 years. How's he going to look? I do think they have a steal in Chris Olave from the University of Ohio State. I think he's going to be really good. Alvin Kamara looks like he's going to play. Their weapons are better than they've had in a long time. Since they had Colston there with all pros that they had when Drew Brees was at the high of his career, I think that their weapons could be that good if Michael Thomas is healthy. I mean, you remember when last time he was healthy, he caught the most passes, 145 in a single season. That's the most in the history of the NFL. He's an all-pro when healthy. The question is he healthy? He's played all camp. He's played in preseason games, so I expect to see him on the field. Jameis Winston he's right there as a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. For me, I worry also, Sean Payton's gone. How does he react? Dennis Allen's his new head coach. So Jameis Winston has something to prove this year for sure. Number 15 is a guy that, for me, that doesn't have a whole lot of experience in the NFL. And I put him at 15 because I couldn't justify him putting him any higher, although I do think he'll be higher come the end of this season. And that's Trey Lance of the San Francisco 49ers. Trey Lance is practically a rookie going into this season. He's played one full game. He's got one touchdown pass, one rushing touchdown, and interception for the San Francisco 49ers. He played one full game. He was injured in another on a rushing play. It was Jimmy Garoppolo's team last year. It is now Trey Lance's team to run. Drafted third overall. He's the starting quarterback. The knock on Trey Lance is his accuracy. Is he going to be able to throw the deep ball? Is he going to be able to complete over 63% of his passes? We don't know. This is purely for me looking at a guy, watching his tape, watching him in preseason saying, I think this dude can be special. I think he can be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And not to mention, I think the 49ers can be really good. He hasn't proved anything yet. I saw him play against the Packers in the preseason. He threw a beautiful deep ball that resulted in a touchdown. I don't think he's shook that Jimmy Garoppolo is back. I really don't. If he is, I keep that to yourself. I saw a report this morning that apparently he was upset. I don't think he is. He knows it's his team. He knows the organization made a good decision for the organization because guess what? Trey Lance got hurt last year in 2 games. Hurt his finger on a design run. They need some security behind him, not because they're going to bench their future star. It's just to have some security. The Niners roster is loaded. I love the receivers, Jawan Jennings, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, the best all-around tight end in the NFL. Brandon Naiuk, who's still waiting to burst on the scene. A good running back system, and they have the best run game coordinator in the NFL in Kyle Shanahan. I expect great things from Trey Lance this year, and this ranking is just me projecting how good he's going to be. I have Trey Lance at 15. I think he'll be in the top 10 this time next year. Number 14, I have Matt Ryan of the now Indianapolis Colts. Matt Ryan, his first season, Sans Atlanta. Last year, he threw for 3,968 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, completing 67% of his passes. Great completion percentage, not a whole lot of touchdowns, but he was playing on a crap roster for a team that had no hope. They weren't trying to win. And it's been a downward spiral for Matt Ryan ever since he lost that Super Bowl. I think you look at him, he's still a good quarterback. He's only 37 years old. He gets out of Atlanta. I think he needed out of Atlanta. Since losing that suit, you see Julio Jones, he's gone. Some guys have left and they found success. Kyle Shanahan has gotten to 2 NFC championship games, 1 Super Bowl in San Francisco. Matt Ryan needed a change of scenery. He needed something new. And you look at the Cowboys defensive coordinator, he's had one of the best defenses in the NFL last year after getting fired in Atlanta. So I like Matt Ryan. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he does some really good things. He's not a guy that's going to move. He's not a rushing quarterback, but he can throw a deep ball. I think him and Michael Pittman Jr. III are going to have a great connection with one another. Matt Ryan, number 14. I like Matt Ryan. I think he's going to have a good season for the Colts. Not to mention, I think the Colts are going to win the AFC South. But I'll reveal all of that tomorrow. Don't want to get too presumptuous. Got to save some content for tomorrow. Number 13 on my top 32 best NFL quarterbacks list heading into 2022. Number 13, I have Kirk D. Cousins Jr. III. Kirk Cousins last year threw for 4,221 yards, had 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, completing 66% of his passes. Pretty good numbers for old Kirk D. Cousins. Not to mention he was playing with Mike Zimmer, who was basically like playing for the Grim Reaper because he just kills every offense. He's a defensive-minded head coach. He's old school. He's a curmudgeon. He's gone. He's coaching Jackson State. Deion Sanders can put up with him there. Kirk Cousins is, for all the fantasy nerds out there, this one's for you. This is a little nugget for you. Last 3 years, Kirk Cousins has been the 3rd best fantasy quarterback in the NFL. That's ESPN stats and info. Kirk D. Cousins. He throws touchdowns. I love this offense. Kevin O'Connell comes over from the Rams, who had a great offensive last year. You had Justin Jefferson, who to me is, if anybody's going to pass Devontae Adams for the best receiver in the National Football League, it's Justin Jefferson because the dude can flat out fucking ball. You got Adam Thielen, who averages 10 touchdowns a season the last 4 years. Another good fantasy nugget for you. You got KJ Osborne, who's a sneaky number 3. You got a roster here. Dalvin Cook at running back. Alexander Mattison behind him. Vikings are going to be a good team this year. I think Kirk Cousins is going to have a big season. He may never win he won't win a Super. I'm not saying bank on him to win a Super Bowl. But can he have a big year? Can he compete with the Packers in the NFC North? I think he can. Kirk D. Cousins. Better than people think. Number 12. This one's for Jerry. I have Dak Prescott. Dakota Rain Prescott, to be exact, is talked about maybe more than any other quarterback for somebody that's just average because he's on the Dallas Cowboys. He had a really great year last year. Threw 4,450 yards, had 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Easily won the NFC East. I mean, winning Lotto Max is difficult. Winning the Super Bowl is difficult. Winning the NFC East is like your 2-year-old kid eating a Cheerio. It's very easy. It's an easy task. And not to mention, the Dallas Cowboys love to throw the football. So I think these stats are a little overblown, but I do like Dak. He is a good quarterback. Dallas, their weapons are worse this year. CeeDee Lamb is going to be called upon to be the man. Hasn't shown it yet in his career whatsoever. Justin Jefferson went in the same draft, went after him. Justin Jefferson's been way more productive, and he's a better receiver than CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb will never be as good as Justin Jefferson. Bank on that one. I like Prescott. I want to see him move his legs more this year. He's a year removed from his big ankle surgery. If he can use his legs while using the run game, while using his pass game, Zeke maybe a little more healthy, get some other backs involved, I think he can be productive. So we'll see. I like Dak Prescott, though. He's a good quarterback. I have him at number 12. Number 11, Kyla Murray. This one was tough. Kyla Murray might be a little high for me. 24 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. He is a good quarterback. They're interesting in Arizona because I don't like the team at all this year. Arizona is a team that made the postseason last year. I don't think they're going to this year. DeAndre Hopkins is out for the first 6 games of the year. Christian Kirk has departed for Jacksonville. James Conner's back, yes. But this team is not as talented as they were last year. To me, Kyler is so great because he can use his legs and he can use his arm. With all the studying nonsense, maybe he'll be more motivated to win this year. Kyler's a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong. He's not just a game breaker, however. I look at this. I think he'll drop on my rankings. He made the postseason last year. He's had great starts to his NFL career. He's gotten better year over year. 5 wins to 8 wins to 11 wins. I think that number goes down drastically this year, and I don't think he'll have as good of a season. I think he's just outside the top 10 on my list. I think he'll continue to fall. Another guy. Number 10, I have Russell Wilson Jr. III. 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions last year. Good numbers. Although those numbers didn't mean diddly squat because the Seattle Seahawks stunk. They picked in the top 10 in the draft. Russell Wilson is now on the Denver Broncos. He's got Cortland Sutton. He's got KJ Hamler. He's got Jerry Jeudy. Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon. Nathaniel Hackett, new offensive coordinator. You know what I feel about the Broncos? I've talked about them past week. I'm not sold in the Broncos. Certainly not sold in the Broncos winning the AFC West. I'll tell you that. As the betting sites are saying that the Broncos are just getting money poured in on them. They re-signed Russell Wilson this big contract. He's 33, going to be 34 in a couple of months. I've seen regression in the last couple of years. He's in this top 10 out of respect more than anything. He's getting to 2 Super Bowls. I have nothing against Russell Wilson. I just think he's getting worse year over year. He had better weapons in Seattle than he does here in Denver. Not to mention his offensive line. It was just as good because I think this offensive line is going to be terrible in Denver. Good luck, Russ. Good luck to people betting on Denver. Number 9. And this is where it starts for the elite quarterbacks for me, are right there. This guy might be just outside of it, but number 9, I have Derek Carr. Derek Carr had 26 touchdowns, 14 interceptions last year, 4,800 yards passing. I like Derek Carr. I really like Derek Carr. Now, he got that team to the playoffs last year. You have to be a great quarterback to do that. With Rick Bisaccia coming in for Gruden and all the shit that was flying around that team, he kept them together. He kept them a team. I like Derek Carr. He can use his legs. He can use his arm. He's got Devontae Adams this year. I think he's a great quarterback with a team that does not, that with a bunch of guys that don't know how to build a team. They don't know how to get defensive players. They never do. They don't draft him help on the offensive line. They never do. And they can inch into the postseason. They can always compete, but never win. Derek Carr, they always say when Russell Wilson was traded to the Denver Broncos, that Derek Carr was going to be the worst quarterback in that division. I disagree. I think Derek Carr is a better quarterback than Russell Wilson, and at this point of their careers, it's not even that close. Vegas will be one of the most interesting teams to watch this year because Devontae Adams is now in Vegas. They still have Hunter Renfrow. They still have Darren Waller. I don't know if they'll make the postseason, but I think Vegas will be a fun team to watch game in, game out. We'll see what happens. Number 8 on my list, I have Lamar Jackson, who is still waiting for a contract extension from the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar had a brutal year last year. His stats would tell you he's not a top 10 quarterback. He had 2,800 yards passing, 16 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. However, he had no one to play with. J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, hurts before the year started. Rashad Bateman got hurt before he missed the first 4 games of the year. He had Mark Andrews, and that was it. Because Hollywood Brown is consistently inconsistent. He dropped more footballs since entering the league than anyone else. He's now in Arizona, where he'll have some success with Kyla Murray. I love Lamar. People don't respect him. He's a fucking MVP. You hear about Justin Herbert. You hear about all these guys that are great. And I have Herbert 7 just to break the ice here. Herbert hasn't won shit in this league. Hasn't won a division title. Hasn't won anything. Hasn't made a playoffs. And yet Lamar Jackson gets thrown to the wolves. Pay him his money. He's worth it. You've given him no receivers, no help since he entered the league, and you're castrating this man in front of everybody, not giving him a dime. Number 7, Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert's great. After I just said he hasn't won shit in this league. Chargers never win anything. They're always propped up. They're always talked about being a great team. Will they make the playoffs? We'll talk about that tomorrow. Herbert threw for 5,014 yards last year. Wowza. Most in the NFL. 38 touchdowns. Tom Brady, he's second in the NFL. 38 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. Herbert's great. He is. Would like to see those interceptions get cut down a little bit. He is a gunslinger. I think his coach hurts. The Chargers should have been a playoff team last year, but the coaching was so horrible with Brandon Staley. They got a loaded roster this year, similar offense, but he knows his receivers. Herbert's not the issue. If he can cut that, he had 15 interceptions last year. I still want to see him throw the ball down the field. If you could cut that to 12, that would even be fantastic. 12, 13, I think that will give you a couple more wins, and you're in a position to finally make the playoffs as a Charger. Phillip Rivers made the playoffs, but they've been going through this with Herbert, with guys, and they haven't been able to get over that hump. Number 6, I have Matt Stafford of the Los Angeles Rams. I almost had Stafford higher, but I put him 6. He did lead the NFL in interceptions last year. He had a pretty good completion percentage, 66%. But he has his flaws. He will throw. There's stretches of games where he will throw 6 touchdowns in 3 games, and he'll throw 10 touchdowns, 1 interception in the next 3. So he's very much a hot and cold quarterback. I do think Matt Stafford was great in Detroit. He had to prove it in Los Angeles, which he did, which I give him all the credit in the world for. Oddly enough, his receiving core to start this year, I think, is better than the receiving core that he had to start last year. Allen Robinson is a big add. I think Allen Robinson overall is a better wide receiver than who they had to start last year. Robert Woods, who's now in Tennessee. Cam Akers missed all last year at running back. He's healthy to start this year. I think they got to get Bobby Wagner's on this. Stafford has a good roster around him. They could still add OBJ if they need to. They have $7 million in cap space to play with throughout this year when OBJ becomes healthy. Stafford's won a Super Bowl. He's now in that group. He's an elite quarterback. He deserves to be this high on the list. Not to mention he's got one of the best arms in the NFL. Just point blank. Joe Burrow is number 5. Broadway Joe. 34 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Completed 70% of his passes, if you can believe it, last year. Joe Burrow got sacked 9 times in a playoff game last year. Joe Burrow got sacked over 40 times in the regular season last year, yet he never complained. He kept fighting, and he was a few plays away from winning a Super Bowl in year 2. Joe Burrow's a warrior. He can make every deep throw down the field. He has a connection that you can't teach with Jamar Chase. He's got T. Higgins. He's got Tyler Boyd. He makes every one of his teammates better. Joe Burrow's just a flat-out winner. He won in college. He nearly won a Super Bowl last year. He is that damn good, and they got an offensive line in front of him. He was doing this with crap, with Jonah Williams giving up just free reign to the quarterback game after game after game. Well, guess what? He's got help this season. He's got players that can actually protect his ass this year. Joe Burrow and the Bengals, I was questioning them. I thought about it all throughout this process, but I like Joe Burrow too much to really worry about them having a Super Bowl hangover, if you will. Joe Burrow is the future of the NFL. Herbert, Burrow, Josh Allen, all these guys are great. Number 4, I have the GOAT, Tom Brady. Tom Brady, who threw for 5,316 yards last year, 43 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Incredible numbers. Could have easily been the MVP. Tom Brady is still great. However, he did get outdueled in the playoff game by Matt Stafford. He's not as good against pressure anymore. You get pressure up the middle on Tom Brady. He's not as good as other quarterbacks at avoiding it. His QBR when pressured up the middle was 23rd in the NFL among starters last year. It's not good. He's 45 fucking years old. It's not going to be that great. He's still elite. Me putting Tom Brady 4th is not a slight. It's actually honoring him for being 45 years old. I don't think the Bucs are going to win the Super Bowl, but they certainly could. Seasons where New England was not supposed to win, they ultimately did. Tom Brady being number 4 on any list at age 45 is incredible. Could he win? He could win the MVP this year, win another Super Bowl, and who knows, play another 2 years. Nothing surprises me with Tom Brady, but he's number 4 because the 3 guys in front of him to me are just better than him. It's unquestionable that they just are. So this is where it's picking hairs because to me, number 1 was non-negotiable. To make it perfectly clear, in order to make this list, I put number 1 first because I was never going to change my mind on it, and I went from there. Number 3, I have Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen is the next coming. He's the next Patrick Mahomes. And honestly, you listen to NFL Network, you listen to different podcasts, Josh Allen's already better than Patrick Mahomes. Most people consider that Josh Allen is better than Patrick Mahomes. Not me, but he is great. I saw them play a playoff game against each other. It was one of the craziest, one of the best games I've ever seen. Patrick Mahomes beat him. Josh Allen can throw the ball down the field anyway. Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis. You go through their team. They're loaded. Not to mention, he's a human wrecking ball when he puts the ball under his arm and runs. Josh Allen is a specimen unlike any other that we've seen. He reminds me of Brett Favre. I think only he has a brain where Brett never did. The Buffalo Bills are the preseason favorite to win the Super Bowl. They're the road favorites against the Los Angeles Rams Thursday night. They're good. Oh, they're good. Josh Allen's great. Diggs, Dawson Knox, Gabe Davis, Singletary. Again, number 3 is not a slight. But is Josh Allen better than Patrick Mahomes? No way in HE double hockey sticks. Prove it. Number 2, I have the 2-time reigning NFL MVP, Aaron Rodgers. Meaning Patrick Mahomes is number 1. We'll talk about that in a second. Aaron Rodgers, 37 touchdowns, 4 interceptions last year. Not too shabby. Back-to-back MVPs. The reason I can't put Aaron at number 1, I do think Aaron is the most talented quarterback that's ever played the position. Said that before. I've seen Mahomes. That doesn't change my mind. But what I've seen from Aaron Rodgers in the postseason is just somebody melting. Every time he gets in a big game, he melts. Mahomes didn't have a great game against the Cincinnati Bengals, but Aaron Rodgers does it every year. Aaron Rodgers is fixated on Devontae Adams, and he will only throw the ball to him. Or he can't figure out a game plan. They don't score points in the first quarter. In big moments, they fold. I can't put him at number 1. I nearly thought about dropping him further because of his recent playoff performances. Losing to porn star Jimmy twice. Losing to Matt Ryan in the time that Atlanta went to the Super Bowl. Lesser quarterbacks Aaron Rodgers finds a way to lose to. Losing to Tom Brady a few years ago. No shame there, but he still lost the game while being at home. Aaron is elite. Devontae Adams is in Vegas. How will he figure it out with new receivers? I am so interested. Back-to-back MVPs. It would seem he can only go down from here, but we'll see. He is an interesting cat, that Aaron Rodgers. Ayahuasca's for lovers. He's had more engagements broke off than Leonardo DiCaprio. But still playing good football at age 38. New contract. Green Bay's committed to him. See what you got, Aaron, because I think the Vikings are going to be pretty good this season. Number 1 on my top 32 NFL quarterbacks entering the 2022-2023 NFL season is Patrick Mahomes boy. 37 touchdowns, 13 interceptions last year, and it was a down year. Can you believe that? 66% of his passes completed. Well, that's garbage. 4,839 yards passing. Did he have a tough stretch last year, Patrick Mahomes? You bet your bottom dollar. Teams were playing 2 high safeties against him. He couldn't throw the ball down the field, and he couldn't commit to checking the football down where he had a bad month. Absolutely. But did Patrick Mahomes figure it out? Well, golly gee whiz, he did. He got to another AFC Championship game. Has won the division every year that he's been a starting quarterback in the NFL. Was an MVP candidate. And yet, Josh Allen's better. Tom Brady's better. He was not in the top 5 for the NFL's best players according to the NFL Network's poll. Wow. The only person I can justify putting ahead of Patrick Mahomes is Aaron Donald. Other than that, I think it's blasphemous idiocy. Mahomes is still the dude. He's 27 years old. He's not 34. He's like Aaron Rodgers. They changed the position. They can do things that other quarterbacks simply can't. He's got 1 Super Bowl. I think he should start winning more to prove that he's not just another 1 Super Bowl guy. He's better than Aaron Rodgers. He's better than Brett Favre. He's put into another category with the best quarterbacks of all time. It's on him to do that. Tyreek Hill is gone, just like Devontae Adams is gone for Green Bay. Both these guys are in interesting positions to prove that they can do it without guys with guys that got them to the dance. Tyreek Hill in Kansas City, he made Mahomes. Davante Adams has made Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. They both have great years. They can prove that they were just as part of the success as the others were. I think Kansas City's going to be good. People are betting the Broncos. People are betting the Raiders. I'm not betting either. I'm betting on Kansas City to win that division. That flew by. Quarterback list. That was fun. It was a lot of work. I'm glad I did it. We are going to have tomorrow my picks for the postseason. MVP, Offensive Player of the Year. All 7 playoff teams from each conference. Each division winner. It's tougher than you think. I'll tell you that, because I did it last night. I did some earlier today, and you got to mark it down. You got to look at every game and really go over it with a fine-tooth comb. But I'll have the AFC, all those predictions tomorrow on the show. We'll also talk tennis and talk about the results of the U.S. Open this afternoon. So hope you guys enjoyed the show today. Let me know what you think of my quarterback rankings. Give me some feedback on the rating review system on Apple, on the comments here on YouTube. Wherever you want to leave me a comment, let me know what you think of my list and what you do to change it. Until tomorrow, take care, everybody. This is To The Point.